This video is brought to you by Ren, but more on that in a moment. Well, hello you lovely bunch of slags. I'm Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet, and if you've been following the channel at all and watching any of my content over the last couple of weeks, you'll know for a fact that I won't shut the fuck up about the new Warhammer 40k commander decks. It is the culmination of two of my favourite hobbies, pastimes, and things that I talk about on this channel, Warhammer and Magic coming together. If you want to see me previewing the entirety of the Imperium deck, or talking through each of the decks and how they fit in flavour and theme, barring the Necron one, which time of recording I actually haven't finished that video, well, there'll be links to that in the cards, the description, and there'll be playlists and all that sort of stuff down below. In today's video, I'm going to do a commander tier list. I'm going to take each of the legendary creatures that are available in the new Warhammer 40k commander decks, which are all new creatures by the way. These have never existed in Magic before, and I'm going to tier them from A through to D, but I'm not going to do it just on power level. I'm not just going to do it on flavour and theme, or how much I like them as a design. I'm going to combine all those three things to make it a really arbitrary mess that doesn't really mean anything. So to clarify, I'm talking how strong are they, how likely am I to build them, how interesting are they as a new piece of design space, and lastly, how flavourful and on theme they are. And like I said, I'll figure out what tier to put them in from there. It's not really a science, I'll give you that. But first, I need to pay my mortgage, so here's a message from today's sponsor. Ongoing climate crisis is best tackled by systemic change implemented on a grand scale by governments. The largest fault really lies at the feet of those in power and the huge corporations that are responsible for lobbying against positive changes and acknowledgement of the problem. All that said though, there is an ongoing climate crisis, and funding green initiatives towards a positive change for the future through services like Ren are a net positive. Ren is a website where you can calculate your carbon footprint, then look to offset it by funding a diverse mix of carbon reduction projects. Things like tree planting, rainforest protection, activist groups, and even more specific things, initiatives that look to promote the use of biochar in agriculture, for example. And this isn't about guilt tripping you into stopping your meat eating habits or recycling more, although both of those things are probably good means to an end if we were all to collectively do them, but it's more about helping these initiatives get funding. You can look to offset your carbon footprint through Ren today, with the first 100 viewers who sign up getting 10 extra free planted trees in their name. So hit the link below if you want to make use of Ren, and it helps to support the show as well. Thank you to Ren for sponsoring this video, and now back to the arbitrary tier list. Let's start with Commissar Severina Rain, a 3-mana 2/2 human soldier who leads from the faults. Whenever he attacks, each opponent loses X life for X number of creatures attacking this turn, and 2, sacrifice another creature, you gain 2 life and draw a card. She is a popular character from the Black Library novels. She is a Commissar in the Imperial Guard, which is the military arm of the Imperium that isn't all super space marines. It's like your average Joe who's been indoctrinated into serving for king and country sort of bollocks. She shows that the might of the Imperial army is to do with numbers, just sheer waves of force, and meanwhile she will happily sacrifice that meat to draw cards and gain life. Resources, in essence. She's flavourful, she's powerful being a human soldier, a 3-mana human soldier in black-white that gives you a go-wide payoff. I think this commander is fan-fucking-tastic. I'm going to put the Commissar in S as an example of S, because she hits all the marks. She's new and interesting, she's a payoff for a deck that, off the top of my head, doesn't really have a payoff right now. Her design is not absolutely nutso busted, but is very strong. It's not just rewarding you by letting you draw cards or gain life for doing a thing, and it hits the flavour sweet spot too. This is a perfect piece of design. I'm just going to say this up top and up front here. I genuinely think these are the best pre-con products they've ever made for Magic the Gathering. You might have heard me waffle about this already in a video that's coming out earlier this week, but I fucking love these decks. However, not everything is perfect, and would I really be an internet critic without ragging on something about the product? To illustrate the bottom end of our scale, we have the one, the only Zark, the Silent King. This guy is meant to be an absolute fucking menace. In tabletop gameplay wise, he is a monster of a unit with tons of text. He's killy, he's shooty, he's fighty, he gives out buffs to your other units as well. He is the leader of the Necron forces who's meant to be on par to some extent with the Emperor of Mankind. What we got was a 4-mana triple black pipped 3/4 flying creature that whenever it attacks, mill 3 cards. You may put an artifact, creature card or vehicle card from among those cards milled this way into your hand. The upside of this is that they were being very cautious, which is good. I'm glad that they weren't pushing every single design to be as broken as shit. Ultimately, this just doesn't deliver on any of the things it's meant to be doing. The Necron deck is actually one of the weirdest of the decks. It both has the most powerful weird combo cards that are going to go into other CDH decks, but it's also weirdly lots of moving parts and synergistic in itself in a combo kind of way. The problem with the Silent King is I don't believe he actually fulfills that combo nature at all. He's not really a good enabler. Firstly, it's whenever he attacks, so it doesn't get an ATB trigger, which is a theme in the deck in general, encouraging people to attack across the product, which is good in some ways. But then he only mills 3 cards, which is hardly enough to power up some of the other cards seen in the deck. And then lastly, it puts a creature card or vehicle card from among them into your hand. Artifact creature, sorry. If this was artifact, creature card, or vehicle. If it's artifact, creature, or vehicle, fine. The fact that it's artifact, creature, or vehicle is kind of sucky. You can't hit mana rocks with it, you can't hit base creatures if you were to play in another deck, and vehicles are not exactly a card type that people are clambering to put into their hand. Ultimately, he doesn't do a whole lot and doesn't enable a whole lot and doesn't fight very well, so I think he's quite the disappointment if I'm honest. So I'm going to stick him in at D. And joining him is going to be the Scepter of Eternal Glory. That's right, for this tier list, I'm using all legendary things from this set, not just the creatures, the artifacts too. I know this can't be your commander, that's kind of the point of the video, but shut the fuck up, it's my YouTube video. This is the Scepter that we see in the art of Zark. This is his weapon that shoots fucking laser beams and disintegrates shit. In some ways, Zark as a body, the actual Silent King himself, is just a powerful noble, right? The thing that really powers him up is the menhirs in the background here in his art. These things are giant cannons that can split tanks in 2. Or his flying throne that you see on the model. Or his Pharaoh advisors that can fire plasma from their eyes. Or the staff that he carries, the Scepter of Eternal Glory. So in some ways, it'd be on theme and flavorful and pretty cool if he powered up when you equipped him with his throne, his menhirs, and his scepter. But instead, the scepter is just a way to cast him. It's just a mana rock. Firmly in D here. I'm actually not really upset or sad when they use mana rock as a way to show a reference or do a thing. We saw it with like the Blood Angel's Chalice in the Imperium deck, and a few references to different Imperial regiments with the talismans. I think the Mind Stone is the sacred heart of one of the Adeptus Sororitas sub-factions. Fine. But when you take one of the most powerful weapons in the universe, or at least a powerful weapon of one of the most powerful characters in the universe, and turn it into just a mana rock, I cannot help but think that's a miss. Maybe I'm wrong, because I'm not that into Necrons, but let me know in the comment section below if you disagree with my assessment of those cards, or any of the cards in this video for that matter. On that topic, let's get the Golden Throne out of the way. It can't be a commander, but it's a 4-mana legendary artifact. It's as if you would lose the game, instead exile Golden Throne and your life total becomes 1, and you can tap it, sack a creature, and add 3 colours of any mana to your any combination to your mana pool. The Golden Throne is the piece of equipment that they put the dying Emperor of Mankind on at the end of the Horus Heresy, after he's injured by Horus in the great battle upon the Vengeful Spirit, to keep him alive. By alive, we mean he's a corpse that like just psychically projects and perhaps causes miracles, and also guides ships across the Immaterium and the Warp. Either way, it keeps the God Emperor alive. Being on 1 life is a perfect way to simulate that. The weird thing is that he gets sacrificed, when in reality it should stay in play in some capacity. Maybe put a counter on it or remove a counter from it to do this effect. Would have been a better design in my opinion. But I still like where this went. I still like the space that it explores. The sacrificing thing is that when you sacrifice, the Imperium sacrifice 1,000 cycles a day to keep the Emperor sustained and alive upon the Golden Throne, and to keep the Astronomicon as a beacon for ships to sail within space itself. So the sacrificing of bodies for a resource is also really on theme. It's a powerful and unique artifact with 2 very cool, like, thematic elements that are mechanically also interesting because you can do cool shit with them. This is gas. The Golden Throne's going to A for both power level, combo potential, unique space explored, and mechanical identity. It's not quite an S because, like I said, there's a weirdness. It shouldn't go away. Name Shy Murad is a 4-mana 3/3. When she deals combat damage to a player, that player may return target permanent card from their graveyard to their hand. So you pick a permanent in their graveyard, it goes to the hand, and if you do, that player chooses a permanent card in your graveyard and you put it onto the battlefield under your control. You give them a little bit of resource back, but you get a better deal out of it. She is a rogue trader. She is one of the high aristocratic houses that have got rights to go trading throughout the universe, even with aliens within 40k. The rogue traders being the name of the game before they changed the name to Warhammer 40k in 2nd edition. Really interesting space for a rogue to be, with this sort of weird diplomatic you get a bit, I get a bit thing, especially in a 4-player space. I think it's thematically on point. I think it's also just wonderfully... Oh, but I say thematically on point, by the way, because she's a dungeon diver. The whole point is she goes into derelict ships, to planets and tombs looking for gear, not drugs, technological marvels that have been lost to the dark ages of mankind. So it fits thematically, and it's a cool political tool as well. I'm going to put this at the top of A. It's only not making it into S, simply because the power level is a little bit lower. Although she does put things onto the battlefield, so she's potentially a S, because if you have an alliance with someone at the table, you can reanimate God knows fucking what with this thing, whilst putting them in a better position too. But also they're making enemies the other 2 players at the table. Wonderful, right? It's wonderful. It's not just objectively the most powerful thing you can do. Gerson, the Keller Morph, the kill team character that I talked about to quite an extent in the Tyranid video, is a 3-mana 3/2 legendary Tyranid human with Ward 2. I think the Ward thing is strange here. I don't really understand why the Keller Morph has it. He's a gunslinging hero of the Rebellion being the subterfuge used with psychic manipulation to get a planet ready for the Tyranids to consume. Him having Ward, if I'm honest, and this is going to be the painfully honest stuff, it feels a little bit lazy. There are a lot of random commanders and cards at the moment that have Ward as a way of just powering them up a little bit, and some things are missing Ward that I think they should have it. If anything, Zark should do. He can literally stop psychic powers with his fucking robot mind in the game, so Keller Morph having Ward is a bit strange. Whenever another source you control does exactly 1 damage to a permanent or player, Gerson and Keller Morph does 2 damage to that permanent or player. So it turns your pingers into extra damage. It's comparable to Torbran, except it's asking you to jump through hoops slightly instead, because Torbran just buffs any damage. So you get access to blue, an extra colour over Torbran, but you've got to jump through a hoop to do it, and then obviously he's a little bit more evasive or harder to kill than a Torbran thanks to the Ward. I really like that. It's not strictly better than Torbran. This isn't the red-blue Torbran, but the hoop you jump through is mechanically, or at least from a deck restriction and building capacity, interesting. I am tempted to build this thing. I'm going to put this at a high A too, and I realise that we're in danger of everything being a high A. Ooh, fuck. Actually, you know what? Fuck it. No, the Ward brings it down. The Ward feels just weirdly tacked on, so we're going to put it in high A. Inquisitor Eisenhorn, a 4-mana 2/3 with you may reveal the first card you draw each turn as you draw it. Similar to Delver of Secrets traditionally, whenever you reveal an instant or sorcery card, like with Delver, you have to create a 4/4 black demon legendary creature token with flying called Cherubale. Whenever Inquisitor Eisenhorn deals combat damage to a player, investigate that many times. He's got Clue Link, Investor Link, Knowledge Link. Either way, when he does damage to someone, he makes clues. He's an investigative Inquisitor who carries a demon host, which is basically a demon infesting a human body purposefully to become a weapon, a tool, with him. On theme, on flavour. I actually think mechanically he's a little bit boring though. I actually think he's a very exciting commander. The build around is perhaps Voltroning him up and hitting people to make clues, but outside of that I'm a little bit lost on what I would actually utilise him for. So it feels like he's a bit narrow. I guess you could argue that Keller Morph is also narrow, but I feel like Eisenhorn is narrow in a way that's less interesting. Thematically strong, mechanically okay. It's not weak, but it's not something I want to necessarily build. I'm going to put Eisenhorn in a mid-solid tier B. Magnus the Red. The Crimson King himself is a 5-mana 4/5 flying demon in Primark. He has instants and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less for each creature token you control. Whenever Magnus the Red deals combat damage to a player, create a 3/3 red spawn creature token. I did a whole fucking video talking about how initially I was quite upset seeing this. So to paint the scene, I was actually at an event where we filmed a video that should be out around the time this video comes out, which is gameplay with the decks. And I got to see all the decks ahead of time. I got to read all of them. I spent like half an hour just reading every single card and absorbing it. And I had fucking goosebumps with excitement. And Magnus is, I suppose, one other legendary in this tier list was quite disappointing at the time because I had fucking high hopes for Magnus. He's one of my favourite characters in all of 40k. And 30k for that matter, even if he is an arrogant bastard. But the fact that he reduces spells equal to tokens in play is so unique and interesting and different, I can't really be mad at it anymore. He hits people and makes a 3/3, so he does self-enable a little bit, even if it is in a slightly lackluster way, but I do really like him. This is probably the highest B tier, and I'm going to put it in B, because I think he should have been more powerful, honestly. I would like this card to be a bit more pushed, but that's absolutely a bias from me, because I love Magnus and the Thousand Suns. Magnus at the top of B there marks the lowest that I would go on this grid in terms of what I will build. I will happily build a Magnus. Actually, no, fuck it. I'm going to build Magnus more so than I'm going to build some of the stuff in A. I think A is like maybe I'd build it if I had infinite time, but Magnus I'm going to build it because I love the character. Lucius the Eternal is a 5-mana 5/3 haste. Astartes Warrior. When Lucius the Eternal dies, exile it and choose target creature an opponent controls. That creature leaves the battlefield. Return Lucius to the battlefield. So basically, he haunts something similar to the old Orzhov mechanic. Again, I spoke about this in the video talking through the Chaos deck where I didn't really understand Lucius's 40k lore, but I do really like him in 30k in the Horus Heresy book series on Istvan and shit. So I didn't really understand how him having the laughing armor and the whip and shit allowed him to come back from the dead. He's an Eternal. We know he's an Eternal. It says that in the name. Several comments actually explained it. So if you want to know more about Lucius, you can either read the wiki or go read the comments to that video. My problem here is that he's just not a very interesting commander to build around. It might be flavorful what he does coming back, and I like him as a bit player in the deck, but I never want to build him as a commander because this mechanic is just not interesting. In addition to that, I talked about this in the other video too. I've talked about these decks a lot, right? But the art doesn't show off the beautiful pinks and purples that you get with the color schemes of the Emperor's Children, a faction that I'm thinking of building and painting soon. I've just realized that I've moved it to the other room. I was going to show you the one model that I'd painted. So I don't really like the art either. I don't think he's dog shit. I will never put Lucius the Eternal in his current guise in dog shit. He's not as bad as Zark as a disappointment, but he's going in C. I'm never building him, and the art, it's cool art, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the art is bad, but I don't think it really encaptured what the Emperor's Children are, like the Noise Marine did. Death Leaper Terror Weapon is a Tyranid, a 3/3 flash haste. Creatures you control at the end of the battle for this turn have double strike. Interestingly, I didn't realise it said this. I've been reading it wrong for the last 2 weeks. I thought when it ended the battlefield, it just gave everything double strike until end of turn. There's a really powerful sort of like overrun effect almost. A large sweeping combat trick that fucks someone. That's what I mean by overrun. Not even a combat trick, it's often signposted. Especially if it's from the command zone, right? This only affecting creatures at the end of the battlefield this turn is a bit strange if they haven't got haste, right? Because you need to make sure things have haste with other stuff in the deck. It takes a lot more effort to enable it, essentially. I'm also not 100% sure exactly where Death Leapers fit in terms of canon and flavour and theme. They're a version of Lictors, I believe. I do love the art as a child, like, cowering for its life against the monster. It's an interesting effect that I don't think I'll ever build, and I also think is much worse than when I first read it, or second read it, or read it for the last 2 weeks at least anyway. I'm putting it below Lucius. It's close to being a D, honestly. Belisarius Call is a 4-mana 2/4 that you can tap, and tap 2 untapped artifacts you control to create 2/2 white Astartes Warrior creature tokens with Vigilance. He can also tap and tap X untapped creatures you control, so he uses those creatures that he creates, the Primaris Marines that he creates, to go looking for technology by looking at the top X card of your library to grab an artifact from among them and put it into your hand. His abilities are on point because Belisarius Call is the master of the Mars Forge world and was also the one who perfected the Marine Astartes project that the Emperor started with the Primaris during the end of 7th, beginning of 8th. So it's cool that he does this, that he creates Space Marines and then uses armies of the Imperium to go and find technology, because that is the absolute overriding priority of the AdMech. I do think his abilities are a little bit weak in terms of what they do, but again, I'd rather they err on the side of caution than go for power and break things. I think he's perfectly reasonable. I'm going to put him at the very bottom of B, because he's so flavourfully on point. Could be a fun commander, but you're going to feel a little bit underpowered compared to other stuff in the set, let alone other commanders in the game. Old One Eye is a 6-mana 6/6 that has trample and gives other creatures you control trample. On ETBs, it creates a 5/5 greed Tyranid creature token. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you may discard 2 cards. If you do, return Old One Eye from your graveyard to your hand. This is part of the mechanical identity of some of the Tyranids, especially the legendary ones, where when they're killed in combat, they will return further down the line with their high fleet on a different planet, and the Imperium doesn't really understand it. Old One Eye being the exact the one that is the most weird because it has the same scarring, the same skull or eye missing element to its physicality. The actual like background of that Tyranid creatures that rise to the prominent ranks like Old One Eye and the Swarm Lord and such, when they're killed, their sentience isn't killed. It sort of like dissipates into the swarm and reforms elsewhere, stronger, better, evolved. So there's a bit of that. But Old One Eye also keeps the whole only having one eye thing, almost like a prophecy that he'll arrive and fight normally Space Marines or Guard, right? He's also the leader unit of the Carnifexes. He's a leading unit for the Carnifexes, which are basically the Tyranid tanks. Big, monstrous tank monsters that can fight in close combat or carry guns if they're a DAC effects, as we call it. So the fact that he brings a 5/5 Carnifex with him is cool too. 6 mana for 11 power and toughness brings a thing with you. The recursion element is not actually that good if he's in the command zone. So as a commander, which is one of the prerequisites for this whole discussion, he isn't that hot. So I'm going to put him at the bottom of B. I'd almost put him in C, but I can't say 6 mana for 11 power and toughness across 2 bodies can ever really get a C honestly. Khan the Betrayer is the one card here that I know for a fact we play wrong in the gameplay video that's coming, so that's interesting. But Khan the Betrayer is a 4-mana 5/1, attacks or blocks each combat if able, and when you lose control of Khan the Betrayer, you get to draw 2 cards. So you actually get to draw cards when he goes fucking AWOL on his killing spree. If damage will be dealt to Khan the Betrayer, not just combat damage by the way, any burn spells do this too. This is the bit that we miss in the gameplay. But prevent that damage and an opponent of your choice gains control of it. I think this card is fucking awesome. I think it's a really fun, like, rampaging berserker red card. If this is your commander though, having it like run around the table seems strange. Although Voltroning it up with like red enchantments and equipment and then letting it be gained control by other people seems kind of fun too. This guy loves an assault suit, for example. There's also a really cool synergistic combo you can do with it where you homeward path it back under your control and then you ping it with Pyrohemia or a similar like activatable pinging effect. It would prevent the damage, you get to move it back to another player again and draw 2 cards. You need to build your own divination by gifting your commander away and making political allegiances. I think that's really fun. Flavorful fun. I'm going to put this at the top of B below Magnus. I really like it, though I can't see myself building it. Trazyn the Infinite is a 6-mana 4/6 legendary artifact creature Necron with Death Touch. As long as Trazyn the Infinite is on the battlefield, he has all activated abilities of all artifacts cards in your graveyard. This is the dude that collects other things. He is the collector for Marvel comic books. He is the Pokemaster, some people joke, that he goes around looking to collect examples of warriors, fire warriors, Adeptus Astartes, custodians, entire small battalions of other armies and forces. He has them all trapped in his Infinite Palace. He's also a very popular character because I think he's the lead in the Infinite and the Divine, or one of the leads in the Infinite Divine. A very popular Necron book that I've never read, but I get told I should be reading it all the time. His ability is so interesting. It's like a necrotic ooze, but only for artifacts. Specifically, any artifacts. Keep that in mind, that he can be activated to make mana and all sorts of things. You can untap him too. He kind of goes infinite with anything. You could like shit yourself accidentally with a harsh fart, like a wet one, and suddenly you're like, whoopsie, I've gone infinite. I'm gonna put him at the bottom of B because he doesn't really do it for me. He doesn't really tickle my gooch that much, but he's still cool because it's Trazyn the fucking Infinite, the collector. He collects things. Although his mechanical identity is more about collecting physical objects more so than the armies and the stasis-locked creatures that he collects. There's a theory that he has a Primark in amongst his collection that might come back in 40k at some point. One of the loyalist ones even, potentially. Maybe he's got Fulgrim. I don't think it could be Fulgrim. Either way, mechanically, he's a bit of a miss there too. Actually, you know what? High C. High C. 6-mana 5/6 legendary creature Demon Primark. This is Mortarian Demon Primark. His title is kind of a little bit boring. Just Mortarian Demon Primark is boring when you... Anyway, it doesn't matter. He's got Primark of the Death Guard. At the beginning of your end step, you may pay X. If you do create X, 2/2 black star is warrior creature tokens with menace. X can't be greater than the amount of life you lost this turn. Basically, you lose some life through some exterior effects, pay some mana, and make some Death Guard Astartes, some basic frontline troops, some Plague Marines, if you will. I think this is a perfectly okay mechanic. I don't think it's very powerful. I don't think it's that flavorful for the Demon Primark. Like, what kind of a basic thing to go for is it that the Primark himself just generates more soldiers? Like, Mortarian is like the master of poisons. He drinks poison for the fun of it before he even becomes a demon. Like, he drinks it like wine in like a caricature in the 30k novels. So to have him do nothing to do with plagues or -1/-1 counters or anything else like that is such a missed opportunity. I think this might be one of the worst legends in terms of portraying what he can do in the tabletop game in terms of his card. I think it's actually probably worse than Zark and the Silent Kings. At least I can kind of see where they were going, where this was the baseline. It's almost like they might have had something else in development, but it was too many moving parts of the deck, so they moved to something that created tokens to help other parts of the deck, like Magnus, for example. I hate to do it because I love Morty, but I'm putting him in D. And I'm putting him lower than Zarek. I think he's actually probably a more powerful commander than Zarek, the Silent King. But like, he's just such a whiff and such a boring mechanic that I don't think I'll ever play with him. He might see a play as a bit player inside my Be'lakor deck that I'm building. On that topic, Be'lakor the Dark Master is a 6-mana Grixis 6/5 demon noble flying. When Be'lakor the Dark Prince enters the battlefield, you draw X cards and lose X life or X number of demons you control, and whenever another demon enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. Be'lakor is the original demon prince. He is the fucking big daddy of the demons. He's actually kind of an auto-including current demon codex for playing him on the tabletop as well. So for then him to be the de facto best demon tribal commander we've ever seen, makes sense if it's erring on the side of pushing things a little bit, right? Why would you play anything else? It gives you access to 3 colours, it draws you cards if you already have a demon board state, or it turns all your demons into extra damage and like kind of like a win con of themselves. On his second part, he is kind of nuts. I love him. It's the only foil deck that I've bought is to get myself a foil Be'lakor in the search foiling. I'm going to be building Be'lakor, probably going to be building Abaddon as well. I love him, but he is a bit too powerful perhaps. He is a bit pushed. Either way, Be'lakor's going in as a strong S, probably one of my favourite commanders, both mechanically, flavourfully, thematically, and the art is sick as well as he soars above the battlefield. It will take the Stormlord as a 4-mana 3/3 whenever one or more artifact cards leaves the graveyard. Create a 2/2 black Necron Warrior artifact creature token. At the beginning of combat on your turn, another target artifact creature you control gets +2/+2 and gains medicine to end of turn. His second ability just buffs one creature, makes it slightly harder to block. Boring. His first ability generates warriors, Necron Warriors specifically, which is quite cool when things leave the graveyard. So if you to shuffle your library and graveyard together multiple times. Unfortunately, you're going to get 1 Necron Warrior per instance of things leaving. But like Zark taking something from your graveyard to hand makes a warrior. Resing something makes a warrior. Eating something with a Wretch, the black cleric scavenger use, makes a warrior. There's loads of ways to make warriors with him. He's the one that seems to make the most amount of warriors, which I really like. I think he's my favourite, just like straight up. He's a Necron overlord that makes Necrons. It makes sense, right? I'm going to put him at the bottom of B because mechanically he isn't that powerful or exciting. However, he does make Necron Warriors, and something's got to fucking make him because the other commanders aren't. The Red Terror is a 4-mana 4/3 Tyrannid. Whenever a red source you control deals damage to one or more permanents and or players, put a +1/+1 counter on the Red Terror. That's right, you get to make him a big old fucking chunky boy. The Red Terror is a weird old model that I remember as a kid that then was out of the book for a long time, then got brought back. I don't really know what his thing is other than him being a named Tyrannid that climbs out of the ground and attacks people suddenly. And I guess that sort of shrug, I guess that's the Red Terror. It's kind of how I feel about it mechanically. I think it's a cool ability. Like it's not all that interesting, but once it's on the battlefield, it's like, oh, cool, it's growing. With every ping, with every bit of damage, even when it hits itself, it grows. Cool. But I don't know if I'd ever want to play that as my commander. I'm going to put it at the top of D. I think it's more exciting than both Zarek. And is it better than... No, yeah. No, it is. I have no preoccupation. I have no preconceived notion of how good the Red Terror should be, where Zarek and Militarian are much more disappointment than the Red Terror. Luminor Xerath, one of my favourite Necron models. Here he's a 3/3 for 3 that taps to sacrifice another creature, add an amount of black mana to your mana pool equal to the sacrifice creature's mana value. Xerath is a creature that can, when he kills things in melee, he uses the energy that he sucks out of the corpse. He converts it and uses it to rebuild and to modify and to improve the Necrons around. He's also one of the dudes that was involved with the whole lose your soul and become robotic thing, so he's quite a big player. Whilst again he's not a very exciting commander, I think he's got one of the better abilities of the Necron legendaries, which I think on the whole are a little bit of a miss, so I'm going to put him at low B. Celestine the Living Saint is a 5-mana 3/4 human warrior with flying and lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, a reanimated creature from your graveyard equal to or less than mana value the life you gain this turn. A 3/4 flyer that is kind of reminiscent of Sun Titan in the fact that you're going to be able to only res 3-drop creatures if you're only hitting with her with flying and lifelink, right? But she does nothing upon ETB, but she can come into the battlefield and then res things if you're gaining life in other ways, of other triggers and such. Yeah, I think she's an interesting and flavourful commander. I think she hits a lot of the theme notes. I had a whole video on Celestine before. The fact that she can resurrect people with her saintly powers, her healing tears as they're called here, is cool. She's like Sun Titan, which is also cool. She's not an angel, which I think was less cool. I like her a lot, but I don't think... Maybe I'll build her. Maybe she's my next mono white commander after Abaddon or Adrian. Maybe. Because I do love the character. Just painted the model too. Oh, look at her. Look at Celestine there, ready for London GT that's coming up. Look at it. Gorgeous. Gorgeous. Celestine's getting a low A. She's almost a B. I'm not 100% sure. Anarach the Traveller is a 5-mana 4/4. Whenever Anarach the Traveller attacks, you may cast an artifact spell from your hand or graveyard by paying life equal to its mana value rather than paying its mana cost. Easily the best inherent, like, on its own ability. I do think the old activate abilities from the graveyard thing is more likely to go infinite and crazy, but is less exciting in that sense. So I think just like hard casting bonuses, citadels, and other ludicrous things out of your hand, I think is pretty fun. It's only artifacts too, so it's also being like just Eldrazi and shit. I really liked it. I'm going to put it at the bottom of B above Xerath, but below Imhotep, because I think being able to make warriors is much more on theme. I've done an entire video about Marneus, so I won't bore you too much. It's a 5 mana, 3/5 with double strike. Whenever one or more tokens enter the battlefield under your control, draw a card. And 6 mana, create 2/2/2 white to start these warrior creature tokens with vigilance. Yes, he's the chapter master. Yes, he should get resources for putting troops onto the battlefield. And yes, he should be able to make troops too. I do think this is leaning into that school of commander that I often myself end up playing. Sithis and Tatiova are two of the decks that I have currently built, where you do a game action based upon a permanent type or part of your game plan, and you're rewarded with some life gain and normally some card draw as well. He doesn't gain your life, but he does draw your cards for making tokens. He's nuts with Smothering Tithe. He goes infinite with all sorts of Ashnod Altar and similar things. He basically goes fucking infinite with a ham sandwich. So he's probably a bit too good. I'm going to put him at the bottom of S. He's probably more powerful than these two that I put there. This guy is probably the best pick for CEDH in the sense that he has infinite mana outlets on his body that also draws your entire deck. But the reason I'm putting him below the other two is that I just don't think he's that interesting a card in terms of what I want to build. And I need to explain that. Like, I probably would happily play Marneus Calgar as the commander of the Precon itself, or powered up version of the Precon. Probably will do that. But I'm not rushing to put together Esper tokens because I feel like I'm getting an easy deal with this one. I guess I am with Be'lakor as well. I don't know why it's different for Be'lakor. Be'lakor's 6 mana. He doesn't draw your card every time you take the game action. Tatiova and Sithis have spoiled me. I'm trying to get away from that. Magus Lucia Kane, 4 mana, 1/1 at the beginning of your combat on your turn. I put +1/+1 counter on target creature, which has got enables like most of the deck, so it's actually quite a powerful effect within the deck itself. And tap to add 2 colorless to your mana pool, and when you cast this on an X spell, you double it. So you can double fireballs, you can double X creatures to make copies of them. Walking Blister being a fun example of that. Another example of the backup commander like Marneus and like Be'lakor being probably better than the actual face commander. Magus Lucia Kane is a very, very cool Expel tribal commander. Probably the best one we've ever seen, arguably. So again, she's airing that space of just being better than anything before, like Be'lakor and like Marneus. So I shouldn't be happy with that. But she's a fucking cool commander, right? I'm putting her at the top of A. Only because I'm in no mad rush to build her, but I could see myself building her in the future. The Swarm Runner is kind of second fiddle to the Magus. At 6 mana, it's a 5/5. When it enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters for each time you've cast from your command zone. So it's a 7/7 to begin with, a 9/9, and so on and so on each time you cast it. And whenever a creature you control dies with a counter on it, you draw a card. So it enables you to create all these cantripping creatures because everything in the deck should be coming in with counters on it. A solid thematic threat as well. Bearing in mind this one, like I said, reincarnates and gets stronger with each time he dies. So that makes sense. I'm sticking at the top of B. He's thematically on point, and he's quite a strong like card advantage engine as well. Even though you're not really lacking those in green-blue commanders anyway. I like him. I just don't think he's as interesting as the Magus. Inquisitor Greyfax, I'm sticking at the bottom of A because I've got a bit of a passion right now for playing go-wide decks that aren't winning through arbitrarily large shit. Like, Craterhoof isn't really winning by swinging out because the opponent's lifetime blockers don't really matter. I like commanders that are prompting me to put a lot of bodies on the board and make combat matter. And Inquisitor Greyfax does that. She also taps things down and creates clues that allow you to draw cards, but none of this being obnoxious or too powerful, but all being thematically on point for her investigating heresy as a Inquisitor of the Imperium. So I'm putting her at the bottom of A. I'm probably more likely to pay her than Celestine. Nah, Calgar beats her out because Calgar... Oh god, I'm so sucker for draw cards, aren't I? And lastly, we have Abaddon, the Despoiler, the Destroyer of Worlds, Horus's little baby. 5 mana, 5/5 trampling, Mark of Chaos allows him to, during your turn, spells you cast from your hand with mana value X or less have Cascade, where X is the total amount of life your opponent have lost this turn. Again, it prompts you to go to combat and hit them for 5 and make all your 5 CMC spells or less have Cascade at that point. It's not great if you're playing a lot of counter magic, you don't want to play that in the deck. The whole set is very themed around getting you into combat, but Abaddon can still trigger off of other life loss and damage too if you were to hit everyone with Pyrohemia. Seems to be a card that I keep mentioning with a lot of the stuff in this set. Or like a Blasphemous Act. Blasphemous Act with a Stuffy Doll in play, 13 your opponent, cast Abaddon afterwards, all 13 CMCs in your hand have... That's terrible. Anything that pings or damages your opponent, even like a large board state, play Abaddon, swing out, do 8, 10 damage, and then cast an 8-drop or a 10-drop and get Cascade with it. A very powerful effect, and it also is thematically very on point because he is the big boy of chaos. The more damage and destruction, murder, and subterfuge that he causes in the galaxy will cause not only the ruinous powers themselves to bestow more gifts upon him and his forces, but also it draws more people to his banner. The more planets he destroys and Imperial fleets he wrecks, the more likely people are to fall and become cultists or people that are devout to him and the ruinous powers. So the more pandemonium he wreaks, the stronger he and his forces get. It's such a good, flavourful mechanic. I'm going to stick him at the bottom of S, just below Marneus Calgar. So there you have it. There is my tier list as such. Again, it's not on power level. I guess the interesting things here is that the Necrons never made it into A or S. Imperial and Chaos got 2 each in S. And the Nids, well, the Nids got 2 into A tier, so they're doing alright. I think the actual Tyranid creatures that aren't GSC were much more straightforward in how they were designed, and thus are less interesting and less likely to get high up on my tier list, I guess. Militarian and Silent King are absolutely bringing up the rear because they were missing opportunities. Meanwhile, like Be'lakor, Servinus Reign, Marneus Calgar, and Abaddon are all powerful, interesting magic cards. Even if Calgar is interesting in a power level perspective, and probably is a little bit too good, which you could argue is boring in itself. What do you think? Do you think I did good? Do you think it's bollocks? Let me know. Hell, fuck it. If I remember to do it, I'll put the link to this in the description below, and you can go do your own tier list of the Warhammer 40k Legendary. Thank you for watching. Thank you to Ren for sponsoring this video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and I'll see you all soon. Ta-ta for now.